Good morning, everybody, and welcome back. If you are new here, my name is Brittany, and on this channel, we talk all about plants. And today we are going to take a look at some of my problem children right now and do a little bit of work on these. So if you are into plants and into houseplant care, stick around and let's do some planty rehab. So before we get into the problem children, I did want to throw a little flex out there at this beautiful Maranta lemon lime and its flower. It is flowering. So this guy is not one on our problem children list today. It is doing great. I do have a video linked below of Maranta care if you are interested in something like that, but figured we'd start out on a high note before we get to the sad notes. So the first plant that we are going to talk about today in terms of ones that are having some issues, this is the satin pothos, otherwise known as the Scindapsus pictus. It is actually not a pothos. It's just kind of one of the names that it's called. So let's take a look at this guy, see what's going on, and see what can be done for him. Okay, so for this Scindapsus, it is, really just having a hard time. This is one of my few plants that kind of has always given me a really hard time. So it is really long and leggy, and the new leaves, it's growing like crazy, but the leaves are like itty bitty. It has some yellowing going on, a lot of like folding of the older leaves. So in terms of this, I think that our best bet is going to be to propagate these really leggy vines. So I'm going to take some scissors here that have been sterilized, and I am just going to cut between some of the nodes. So the nodes are the area that the leaf itself grows out of, and I'm picking about every other node to cut. So I've got 2 leaves here, and then I'm going to remove the bottom leaf. There we go, focus. So that it looks like so. And then these pieces are just gonna go into some water. We're gonna start over with this plant. I'm not super attached to this plant in the way that it's been growing currently. So I think that propagating it, starting over, giving it some fresh soil and a happier home is going to, at this point, be our best option, solely for the fact that I have always struggled with this specific plant. So of course it's not a me thing. Like, I definitely did not neglect him or underwater him or not give it enough light. It's probably just a him thing. I'm kidding. I definitely did neglect it some, but I do also know that I've had issues with this plant from the get-go. If you have a Scindapsus pictus and you really have done super well with it, give us some tips in the comments for what are like the best care tips. Is there a specific fertilizer it really likes? Here we go. And you guys, let me show you this. So it's super dry, and this could be dry rot, but I know that this does take a really long time to dry out. So I just kind of pulled on the, look, watch. So there are some roots, but they're really not holding on at all. That's crazy. We're starting with the worst first. It's gonna get better from here, I promise. This one, like I said, I'm just not super attached to because it's always been my problem child. So I'm just gonna do away, it's okay to start over, with all of the oldest leaves. I'm going to get rid of the soil because I think there also might have been some sort of like hydro problem, potentially it was holding in too much moisture, and that's why that root system did rot out. So that soil is gonna go, those older leaves are gonna go. We've got a good sized pile of these little baby stems that I cut into pieces above the node that we're gonna go ahead and propagate in water and give it a couple months. Once those start to grow roots, then we'll just start over, get a really nice soil base going, and start this plant from scratch. So Scindapsus pictus, I think, had a root issue. Number one, I promise, like I said, that is the worst one that we're dealing with today. Let's take a look at some of my other problem children. Okay, number 2 on the list, that is the beautiful Monstera Peru. And on this channel, if you are new, this is our favorite girl. We love her. She just like does her thing. And recently we had chopped and propped, and we do have some definite new growth that has come from this chop. It was just getting really leggy and wasn't pushing the volume of leaves that I was used to with this plant. So we did propagate it, but since then I've had one of the 3 or 4 vines that are on this plant that just has not produced any leaves. So we have this super long vine, and that is like outstanding growth for the amount of time that it's been since we cut this vine down. So what I want to do today with this plant is re-add the pieces that we had removed or cut, chopped and propped back into the pot. And then we're going to propagate that vine as well and see if we can get some growth that is going to continue to fill this plant out. So when you cut, let's just do this here. When you cut a vine, so I just cut this off, that is just a long vine without a single leaf on it. It's going to encourage new growth. So where that vine is, where you cut, it's going to push another vine because it can't keep growing from that cut. So that's where you can get some more fullness. It's going to be pushing the vines off in different directions. So that is what happened specifically with this vine right on the tippy top here where you see this new leaf. It pushed a couple different directions, and we finally got a little bit of fullness back on the top. So that's what we're gonna do today. Encourage some fullness over here where we just cut that right there. And then I'm just going to cut this between the nodes again and try and propagate it. So if there are no leaves, you can still tell where the node is because that's where like the notchy part of the vine is. And there. So I'm gonna go ahead and propagate this, cut between the nodes every couple. There we go. And then let me grab the pieces that we had propagated previously. I honestly haven't looked at them in a little bit, so it might not be time to re-add these to the pot, but let's take a look at that and see if we can get one of our propagations off the shelf. There is that new root that came from this propagation. So we are going to go ahead and add this, ooh, it's probably so loud, back into this pot. And I'm just kind of creating a space here, avoiding damaging any roots. And then I'm just gonna add this right into this pot. I've not had an issue with the Peru going from water to soil in terms of like acclimation. There are some plants that I've noticed have a really hard time changing substrate. And excuse me, I had seen recently, it's like the difference between soaking in a hot tub and like your body feels fine and it feels nice versus wearing like wet clothes and how terrible that is. So being in water is like being in a hot tub, then you put it back into the soil without acclimating it, and it's like sitting in wet clothes all day. You're gonna get like the dryness and the chafing, but in plant form. So be aware of that. If you see that it's starting to struggle, you can always take it out, go to a semi-hydro substrate first, or we have done where you just start adding soil slowly into the water that you are propagating in, maybe a tablespoon a week, just so it kind of gets used to that denser substrate. Okay, so we've got this, added that propagation back in, took a couple cuttings that are going to go into this little prop cup here. Let me show you what else is in here while we're at it. I've not, look at this ball of all of this mix of plants. So I'm gonna drop these propagations in here. Here's the Peru, and then here are the satin pothos. Those are gonna go in. You want these to sit out for just a little bit so that they can dry, callus over. Some plants are a little bit more susceptible to rot if you don't allow that to happen than others. So just be aware of that. This is a, guys, let me pause and get this untangled, and then I'll show you what props we have that are obviously very well rooted in here. Okay. So let's talk about the problem children props first. We did have a Monstera Peru cutting that just rotted and did not end up growing roots. So what you can do from here, if it is a large cutting, you can just cut that rotting part off and just start at that next node. Here we go. Taking that leaf off. And we're gonna try again, right back into that prop container. The second one is this little satin pothos cutting. It rotted. The leaf looks terrible. So this one, we're just gonna count it as a loss and it's going to go in the trash. There's another little just wet stick. It's gross. That, I don't even know what that was, to be honest. It's going in the trash. The ones that were successful now are doing quite well, and we can add those back into their pots today as well. So we've got, this is the Hoya publicalis, and I had propagated this probably 3 or 4 months ago. And the root system's great. It's growing secondary roots. So we can pop that back into its pot. The second one of my all-time favorite plants that I own and just like thrives for me is this beautiful philodendron micans. It's so pretty. I love this plant. It hangs in my living room in the window, and it just like grows like crazy. And I have to propagate it all the time just because of the amount of growth that it has. So it's got a really big, beautiful root system as well. We will add this back into that pot and honestly probably take another cutting and start over. So that's what the prop box is looking like. I think that is all of them in terms of the problems. Let me update you on 2 that are like just stars, queens of the show, and then we'll move on to our next project for today. Okay, so the last 2 propagations that we even have going at this point in time are the snake plant. And this thing has blown up this summer, you guys. And it's doing great. I'm so hesitant to put it back into soil because it's thriving so much in water. So I think I might leave it. And if anyone has a snake plant in water, does it like it? Like, did it make it? Is it growing big? I'm like, I don't want to have put all this work in for the last year of propagating this and then put it into soil and it like die. So I don't know. Let me know. What should I do? And then the second one is for sure gonna stay in water because when it was in soil, literally the entire plant died. And I put like a wet stick into water, and 9 months later it started blooming again, and now I have leaves, and I'm like, it is one of those plants that everybody kills. If you know what it is, pause right now, write the comment, what is this plant that we all love but we all kill? It's a little fiddle leaf. So it was literally a stick, and I put it into water, like I said, and now this really dense root ball has formed, and it has just like crazy growth. This is, I swear, more leaves that I had on the actual plant at one time. So it's just gonna live in water, and it's just a cute tiny little baby, and it loves its little spot on the windowsill in its water. I have it in this cute little like folly looking container, and it's doing totally fine. So keeping the fiddle leaf fig in the water. Should I keep the snake plant in the water as well? Like I said, it has thrived, but I don't want it to get like the root system to get so big that then it needs more nutrients, you know? So let me know, what should I do? What have you done? What questions do you have about that we can all like discuss in the comments too? So I think we're gonna hit one more plant today that needs a little bit of love, and then I'm gonna get all of these propagations potted up, that Hoya and the Micans, and then I think that is going to be it today for our chores. Tomorrow I will come back and do a little bit more. I just have a couple things that I have to get done today. I'm a teacher and we start school this week, teachers do, and I'm teaching all new classes this year, so I feel like the majority of my days are kind of put into thinking about my classroom, my new classroom, my content, my syllabus, my, you know, posters on the wall, the things that take time. So I'm just gonna do a little bit today. I'll come back and do a little bit tomorrow, and then I'm also thinking about doing a teacher like outfit haul. I got some new outfits this year from very inexpensive places, not necessarily fast fashion, but if you're into like fashion and would want to see a teacher haul or, you know, a over 30 mom haul, let me know and I can totally do that. Okay, so the last little baby that we are talking about today is the variegated string of hearts. This being one of my very favorite plants that I own, and I had propagated this larger pot recently and it took fairly well, but it didn't take completely. So I do want to kind of remove some of these dying parts, but I had gotten a second because I wanted a fuller, bigger, you know, starting bigger so that it grows faster plant. Because my husband, we have the Micans out in the living room hanging from the drapes. And he's like, I feel like we need one on the other side to balance it out. Another hanging plant. I love your plants. Like, maybe he's just saying it to make me happy, but he's like, I love that little string of hearts. I want that out there. I mean, it was so cute to balance out the two hanging plants. And I knew this little guy with his two strands wasn't gonna quite do what he was envisioning. So I got this secondary one to kind of add some fullness right off the bat. So I want to add these two plants together and see if we can get that hanging up out there. So let's do that. First off, I'm gonna remove the soil from both of these and kind of evaluate, make sure that we're looking okay interiorly. Now, The string of hearts does have a root system that can be bulky on the interior. So if you see some bulk to it, don't worry. That is just how they grow. So you'll see if you think of like a ZZ, like those potatoes, those rhizomes underneath, these are the same type of growth. And that's why we need to remember, you guys, just a tip, these don't need watered very much. Just like our ZZ, they're storing a ton of water in their root systems. And they're really full. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit sick, or I don't have allergies. I don't know what it is. My whole house sounds like this. They're really thick leaves are storing that water too. So the majority of the time, the issue with these plants that people are seeing is, one, overwatering, and two, not getting enough light on the top of the plant. So just kind of keep that in mind. I'll mist these probably once a week, but and every plant is different and every space is different, but I'm really not watering, like bottom watering or soak watering through, but maybe once a month. So that's what works in my house. Don't base your timeline off of that, but people tend to overwater these plants. So just a heads up for you. Here's what I was talking about, you guys, with those rhizomes. So they look like potatoes. If you're having an issue with your plant, you can always check these. If they're super squishy, they might be rotting. Or if you can see them from the inside and they look really like shriveled, like a little shriveled potato, they probably need water. So kind of a mess, but I did get those two planted into one pot, and I'm going to see if I can get that put up in the living room and see how that looks. I'll give you a little sneaky peek of that. But other than that, I think that I need to stop for today, go get a little bit of work done, like I said, and then I'll be back tomorrow to continue with some of these chores. I really am just wanting to get these done before school starts. So thank you so much for sticking around, hanging out while I chit chat. I would love to hear from you in the comments on any tips that you have. And if you're interested in like a little fashion haul, and then if you have any other ideas or things that you've been wanting to discuss, let me know. And I hope that you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. I will see you tomorrow for part 2 of Flip Chores.